Hey guys, and welcome back to the next tutorial. In this one I'm going to go over the if statement inside of Python. So the if statement pretty much it checks if two conditions are true or false, and if they are true it runs whatever code is inside the if statement. So we can do something like if 2 is equal to 2. And this is really important. See how I put two double equal signs? In programming, if you have two equal signs together, that actually means equals. If you just have one equals, it means a sign. So if we had a variable called cat and we assigned it the number 7, it's cat equals 7. It's not saying cat is equal to 7. It's saying assign the number 2 to the variable cat. So just to show you real quick. Dang it. So cat equals 2. This is saying assign the number 2 to the variable cat. All right, but we're actually wanting to check and see if things are equal with a if statement. So if the number 2 is equal to the number 2, and then you put a colon, and what that says is if the number 2 is equal to the number 2, if this turns out to be true, run this chunk of code that is in here. And if you notice, that actually indented my cursor for me, which means, hey, we're inside this if statement right here. So it moved our cursor inside. 2 is equal to 2. So what this is going to do is if 2 equals 2, if this returns true, print to the screen the string 2 is equal to 2. And it worked because 2 does equal 2. But if I do if 3 is equal to 2, then a colon, print 3 is equal to 2. So if this turns out to be true, it's going to tell us this is true. But as you can see, it didn't print anything to the screen. It never went in here because this turned out to be false, so it just skips this line of code. There are instances where if it turns out to be false, you would want it to run a separate piece of code. So we can do if 3 is equal to 2, print 3 is equal to 2. We already know this is actually going to be false, so it's not going to go in here. But say there's some code we want it to run if it turns out to be false. You can actually go down to the next line of code. And actually, I don't use idle that much, so I'm trying to figure out. I don't know if this will work. I'm going to try it, though. Hold on 1 second. Oh, that worked. Okay. So if 3 is equal to 2, print 3 is equal to 2. But we know this is false, so we can go on the next line. And this is kind of iffy looking because we're using idle, but this else right here is supposed to be lined up with this if statement. They have to be on the same indentation level, but because I'm using idle, it has these 3 little arrows right here, and it's kind of pushing the if out a bit, but just pretend they're kind of on the same level. So the else statement saying if this returns false, then run this line of code. So if it returns false, print 3 does not equal 2. And as you can see, that's actually what it printed out. So I want to take, actually, here, I'll show you. You can actually use variables too. So we'll make a variable called x equals, or actually here, name equals Jody, and name 2 equals Jody. So we have 2 variables and they both equal the same thing. So if name is equal to name 2, print these names are the same, else print these names are not the same. So both of these names equal Jody. So we know this is going to turn out to be true. So it's going to print these names are the same, and it's not going to run the else because it returned true. So as you can see, it prints out these names are true. So you can compare variables, you can compare just hard-coded numbers like this, you can compare floating points, you can compare Boolean values, whatever you want. What was the other thing I was going to bring up? So you've probably been wondering in idle. I've been using like the basic idle shell, which is kind of like running one line at a time, and you've probably been thinking, is like, how can you actually make a file come up and enter all your code in like a file that you can save and run it later? So to do that, you can go to File, New File, and it brings up kind of like a text document right here. So you can actually type in your code and save it as a file and run it. And this is kind of the main way you make a program. You don't really use idle, the shell. The shell is more like for testing little lines of code. And it's just been easy to kind of like do tutorials using the shell here. But this is how you would actually make a program. You would type it in a file. So we can do the exact same thing. So we can say name equals Jody and name 2 equals Jody. If name equals name2, print these names are the same. So what I can do is I can file, save, and I'll save this to my desktop. Python tutorial. So I'm just saving this to my desktop, and I'm there it is right there. I don't have to double click this file. You can actually, since I've already got the file open, you can just click run and click Python or run module. So run module will actually take all this code right here and just run it. And you can see the output was these names are the same. It ran it right here. It ran it in the same Python shell window we were using, but it put this little line that says restart. And this is like restarting the shell to like a blank, like new Python shell. And then it outputted these names are not the same. Wait, did it output these names are not the same? Oh, these names are the same. Because the names are the same. Jody does equal Jody. So if Jody equals Jody, which it does, print these names are the same. And as you can see, that's what it did right there. Yeah, that's pretty much it for right now on the if statement. The next thing I'll probably do, actually what I'm going to start doing, I'm going to start writing my code in an actual file, because that's typically how you would work in Python. In the next video, we'll probably learn how to get actual input from the user where they can type in something, and we can store that input in a variable and use it in our code. And we might be able to make like an actual little, I don't want to say a game, or we might be able to make a little project in the next video. I'm not sure. But yeah, once you start getting input from the user, they can throw stuff in your code and you can manipulate what happens on the screen and make it real dynamic. Super cool. But we'll probably get into that in the next video. Have a good one.